recording here. We're recording. This is, I think, going to be a relatively short meeting today. We are getting to the wonderful point where we have less and less on our V1 alpha blockers list and less even on our nice to have list for V1 alpha 1. We also have a bit more to discuss around gateway naming. I think that's mostly sealed up now. I just want to cover that a little bit before we actually send that out for a vote. And then a bit of PR and issue triage, but again, there's not much on any of these. So this could be a relatively quick meeting. Let me get started with this list of blockers right now. This actually looks larger than it is. I know it's already pretty small, but part of this is because some of the issues are being double counted because we have a PR and an issue they're both being counted as blockers. So I'll start with Danian's first PR here. This does a lot. This was primarily trying to solve the issue that we had no good way of, routing to everything, matching all requests for TCP, TLS, and UDP routes. And this attempts to solve that. And it does a lot more. So I think it's worth going through just a little bit to see if anything stands out here. This is just a small change of moving this around. I have a little bit of feedback I have been meaning to add. I just looked at this briefly before. One of the things that we had previously left unanswered is what happens when forward to is unspecified and there are no filters. The idea is forward to is optional intentionally, and it's optional because in the future there might be something like a redirect filter where a forward to just wouldn't make sense, and it's not something like we want to require in that case. But we do need to clarify what happens if there's no forward to, no filters, or maybe even more specifically, if the filters we have don't terminate the request. Then we need some kind of description of what happens here. I think there's a little bit more that could be said on this, but it's good to have this here. The other change I think is potentially larger. So in TCP route, he's adding a max length for rules. But there's one route further down here. Let me not jump too far ahead here. I think maybe it was just UDP route where we didn't have UDP route. Wait, what? Okay, never mind. I thought he was adding UDP route rule. I was wrong. It already existed. It was just moving it down. So disregard what I was going to say here. So this is actually a fairly large PR. We don't have enough, I don't think it's worth it to go through every little detail in this call. But if you have time on your own, I'm going to take some time immediately after this call and go through and review it and see if anything stands out to me. But this is a key PR because it, one, cleans up some of our documentation, our Go docs, that is, and two, it solves one of our blockers, which is simply that we have no way to communicate, match everything on these routes, which may have been assumed before, but we never actually said it. So I think that's all that I'll say about this one. I know there's been some feedback here, but both Danian and Harry are not on the call right now, so I will leave this one alone. Well, before I leave it alone, did anyone have any comments on this PR? Cool. All right. I will keep on moving then. As far as the V1 Alpha 1 milestone, I know it's very easy to focus on what we've considered blockers, and that's what we've labeled with this critical urgent priority. But obviously, it would still be good to have the rest of these in. It's just because they haven't been classified as a blocker for release, a lot of these would still be very valuable to have. I know Mark has a PR that would help with this user guide bit. And I know Harry has been working on some user guides. I have an action item to follow up with Mark to try and see if we can split his PR up into a few different PRs that will be easier to review. Let's see what else is still in flight. It looks like a lot of these have PRs in progress. We do still probably need at least one more example here. We kind of have an example of a gateway that targets routes in multiple namespaces, but it's not as clear as it could be. That is the purpose. So we may want to expressly call that out in a separate example. Yeah, but in general, I think we're getting awfully close here. But if you have time to pick up any of these other ones, I think all of the ones that are blocking are accounted for, except for this example. But if you have time to pick up some of these nice to haves, I would say they really are nice to have, especially the important soon one, which is the next on the list. So if we want to take these on, Rich has already taken this one on for documentation, but there's still a few more that we would really like to have in sooner than later as far as next steps. So if you have any time, I think these are the ones to focus on. Cool. Okay. We're just flying through these. Let me go through gateway naming one last time here. We covered this a little bit in office hours yesterday. Just we ran through the names that had been submitted by the community, and we ruled out a bunch of them for various reasons. We should probably write in some more reasons why we ruled out some of these. But we are left with a few that I think are reasonable. I talked with some of the Istio maintainers. Actually, John's on the call, and it sounds like they don't actually mind us conflicting with their Istio gateway resource. So it may not be as big of a deal as we'd initially thought. I think it's still worth voting about, but I don't know that it matters if we just end up sticking with gateway. Like if that's still our preference, then that's great. I don't know,
the one
John,
thing I would say is that like the name sounds great, but we should have a way that users can select like the kubectl get without conflict, whether that's just not using the same alias or changing kubectl, since otherwise that would just be a huge pain. I don't know which one will win, but whichever one loses will be a poor experience. So
yeah, absolutely. So I think like right now, Harry has a PR that would add a short name. And I think if we used a distinct short name, a distinct alias that Istio is not currently using, that might be sufficient. As long as, not every service APIs user is going to have Istio installed, and not every Istio user is going to have service APIs installed in their cluster. But as long as there's an obvious way to interact with both at the same time, I think that's a win. And I think there's a couple different people on the call that weren't on office hours yesterday. So if there are any names that are not currently crossed out that you would be unhappy with, feel free to veto them at this point, and I can just not include them as part of the names we vote on. But I will always interpret silence as agreement with the names that we have right now on the list. And so everything that is not currently crossed out. I will, I don't know, maybe tomorrow, but probably will be early next week. I will translate these into something that we can actually vote on as part of SIG Network and see what everyone else thinks.
I
Yeah,
guess my 2 cents is I don't see a obviously better candidate than Gateway
yeah,
on that
yeah.
list.
I agree with that, and I hope that, well, I don't know what I hope for, but that's I agree with that thought as well. Maybe if we get overwhelming support for another name in community, then sure, we can consider that. But what I'm honestly hoping is that this just validates our original choice. And I think it's helpful to have gone through the process and gotten stronger feedback from community as far as our name here. But I do tend to agree that Gateway probably is still the best name on this list. And I imagine that as votes come in, it will probably continue to lean that way, but we'll see. Are there any names here that just really feel terrible to you?
For me, I don't want to be too mean, but I really don't like any of the
Yeah.
other ones very much.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that consensus. I'm really, I guess that's kind of the danger of a vote, is that I really don't like any of the alternatives right now. And, we open it up to the community to provide alternatives, and even still, I'm struggling to see any of them really being used. But maybe we'll learn something. Maybe the community as a whole really prefers another name, and if we see that feedback, maybe we will. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if it's because I've been involved in the project for so long, or if it really is just a good name, but I am also quite partial to Gateway. Yeah. Okay. I will keep on thinking about that and probably send something out next week. And if people don't want to even open up for voting, we can discuss that too. I'm not too set on any one way here. Okay, so we'll move into a PR triage. There's been a couple PRs that have come in the past week. And there's also this app protocol PR from Harry that I'll at least mention here. I added a little bit of feedback on this one. Well, okay, I've added a bunch, but I just had one tiny little note that I added this morning on this, and I think it's good to go. I think someone else has added some feedback as well. But I think I'm generally happy with the idea of an app protocol annotation. And it's very clearly scoped now to be specific to service and specific to Kubernetes versions before 1.18. So I think it's pretty clear that this is intended to be a temporary thing. So I'm happy with what he's added here. But if anyone else feels strongly on that one, definitely leave some comments. This one is from Rich. Again, there's been some good feedback on this. We discussed this a bit at office hours. It looks like he's already updated some things here. One of the questions that still remains is this. So we're trying to differentiate a little bit as far as how HTTP route rules should match and what is most specific, I guess. And one of the things we're missing is if host name and path match, what exactly you know, like if they're equally specific, it seems like we would then go to header matching. And how do we determine which header match combination is more specific if header matching exists? And so this suggestion of the largest number of header matches is rather imprecise, but seems like maybe our best option here. I don't know, yeah. Mike, I had a great suggestion yesterday, which was to split this from the longest matching combination of host name and path to host name. So longest matching host name first, then longest matching path, and then largest number of header matches. So kind of this 3-step process here. And I think that would also be a great improvement. It looks, I don't know if we ever added that as a formal comment, so maybe I'll do that after this call. Yeah, Mike, did you add a comment around that? Or I think Rich was on the call, so he may have already gotten that idea. Yes.
Right, I didn't add a comment. I thought Rich was planning to make that change.
Okay.
So I wonder whether
Yeah, okay.
did he add a table? I think he suggested he might add a table with examples. Maybe he did that instead.
No. Yeah, and I thought that was more of a document. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but it looks like it had the PR has been updated since we talked yesterday, but we missed that part. I'll just add this now. Okay. Cool. But I think this is another great improvement, and it looks like it needs some code generation and a few other things, but it will be good to get this one in. The latest pull request is the one that we already briefly covered at the top of this meeting, and that's Danian's PR that is doing API cleanup. I think this PR is probably a bit too large to really dig into in this call, so I won't go much further than we already have. But I think the changes are generally positive. I just need to take a closer look myself. This is also, fixing what we're considering a V1 alpha 1 blocker. And once we get this one fixed, we're really near the end of the list for V1 alpha 1 blockers. So I'm pretty happy to get this in soon. I will at least take a look at this right after the call, but if anyone else has time, an extra set of eyes would be really helpful, because there are some seemingly structural changes to some of these other route types that we haven't interacted with as much, like UDP and TCP. So it would be good just to make sure that we had more than just my eyes on it. And it looks like Harry's already given some feedback, just to make sure we were all on board with what's changing here. Yeah. And I think that's really it. Most of the other PRs, the short name has plenty of discussion around it already, and this is not V1 alpha blocking at all. Though actually, I think, John, it sounds like you would prefer for us to get this into V1 alpha 1, just so that we could have a way to reference gateway distinct from Istio gateway.
So I don't actually know exactly. I haven't looked at the kubectl implementation, but in my experience, the service API is always one. So kubectl get gateway would always do the service APIs one, and then you'd use Istio's short name to get the Istio one. But it's also possible that it's like first one wins or something, or last one wins, and I just always did one order. I haven't confirmed.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I don't know
I'm not
what
sure
the
if it's like
logic
the
is
group.
there.
It could be like the group is alphabetically different. Or, I don't know. We could probably check, or we could just merge it. But if we don't merge it, we should probably verify.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have some name that's unique, you're fine. But if you don't have any short names and Istio's wins, then it would be harder for you to reference them.
Huh. Okay. I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I thought it was, based on install order or something like else. It's strange. It seems alphabetically. Wait, what's the group for Istio CRDs?
I think this one would be networking.istio.io. But I think yours is also networking. But
Yeah,
it's like
it is.
networking-x, right?
Yeah, so it's networking.x. So you would think that yours would, again, if this
I
were
don't know.
alphabetical.
Let's test it out and try the different
Yeah.
orders and see if it's different, or just look at the implementation, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So if we find that is not consistent, then I guess we should make this more of a priority before V1 Alpha 1, but otherwise, that sounds great. It would be great if it consistently worked in one way or the other, but who knows? Yeah, okay. And I think that's really all that is worth discussing today, unless anyone else wanted to bring something up. Yeah, are there any open items? Cool. Well, that was easy. Thank you everyone for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I think we're getting awfully close here. Just encourage you to take a look at this latest PR from Damian. And if you have time, take a look at the milestone itself and pick up some of the higher priority items that are still outstanding. But so far, I think we're looking good. So yeah, have a good rest of your week.